It is a pleasure to have with me one of the truly great songwriters in contemporary pop music.
That's true. That's all true. Keep going. List more true things about me.
Justin Tranter is your name.
There you go. You're killing it.
So they have written for and with Selena Gomez, Chappell Roan, Justin Bieber, Dua Lipa, The Chicks, Imagine Dragons. The list just goes on and on. It might be literally everybody who has ever recorded a song.
There's like 4 people left, and I'm coming hard. I'm trying to get those last 4.
Just make an EP with one song with each of them. They've amassed over 50 million in single sales, 50 billion streams on Spotify and YouTube and counting. And right now, they're nominated for a Song of the Year Grammy for Chappell Roan's Good Luck, Babe. I wanted to go back to your early experiences with music first. Do you remember when you first had a sense that there are these things called songwriters that have a job that they do independent of performing music?
No one in my family makes music, but my dad is like a serious music fan, like credits, stories. The only books that he reads are musicians, autobiographies. Like that is all that he cares about. So I was pretty aware of that. There was some people that did that job, I think, before most people are, just because my dad just would list the credits, and he would, our road trip game we call it the radio game, and you just flip a channel, and whoever can guess who the artist is first gets a point. So obviously that wouldn't tell you who the songwriter is, but it just is an example of like how much music trivia was an actual part of like my daily life, even before I wanted to be a musician. So I was aware pretty early. I'm sure my guess would be it was Carole King of my dad. Well, yes, of course she sings this song, but before that she wrote this and wrote this and wrote this. And then I don't have the exact memory of that, but knowing my dad's obsession with Carole King, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Or when someone would cover a song, like I was obsessed with Debbie Gibson and Tiffany. Now, Debbie wrote all of her songs, Genius, Worship. Tiffany, a lot of her hits were like covers from the 60s that she was redoing in the 80s. So I remember, I think We're Alone Now, and my dad giving me like, Tommy James and the whole, so I was aware of that stuff. I mean, Tiffany was 85? Right? So I was 5 years old being educated that like, that's a cover, this person wrote it. So yes, early on.
You were raised right.
I was raised, in many ways, raised very right. Yes.
For over a decade before you signed your first publishing deal, you were writing songs for yourself, either as a solo artist or for Semi-Precious Weapons, of course. Can you talk about how those years performing your own music prepared you for a career as a professional songwriter?
It prepared me in so many ways. I mean, even the reason I had a publishing deal was because of the band. So not only did my band prepare me for things, which I'll get to, but also if I hadn't been in the band, I would have never had a publishing deal. And the publishing deal is how I got the opportunities to write songs with and for other people. So, how it prepared me is that you really, performing live, it's like you're like doing like focus group testing on how good a song is or how good a lyric is in like there's a focus group for your own song and the audience is staring at you. It's not like it's a really amazing experience. And I could always tell, this lyric every time no matter where I am, whether I'm the headliner or the opener, that this lyric in that song, it always gets people's attention. Or this in this, blah, blah. And then I'll never forget, we were opening for Lady Gaga. My band was opening for Gaga for a long time. And then there was like a 6-week break on that tour. And we came to LA. We were a New York-based band. We came to LA and wrote songs with a bunch of different people, just to like do like the pop circuit, which we had never done before, which is what now I spend my whole life doing on the other side. And even though the song I'm about to say, the reaction we got was so good that we did write it ourselves. There wasn't co-writers outside of the band on it, but I learned so much in those like 6 weeks of writing with other people that then we wrote our own song by ourselves called Fuck the Dance Floor. And it never came out, funny enough, but the melodies were a lot better than I always, just to speak freely, always had great lyrics in my band that I would write, but melodically it was like more on the punk side. So intentionally the melodies were not giving as much movement, not as much arc. It just wasn't a part of the thought process. And then this one song we had where we were opening for Gaga again. So same audience, basically. Most of them knew none of our songs. And that song, all of a sudden, we're openers and we had the whole arena on its feet every time we played it. And I was like, oh, so it really like seeing people's reaction in real time, strangers who don't know you, probably don't like you, really showed me like the power of like when all the stars align in the song, when the lyric is great, when there's a riff that's hooky enough, when the melodies are working. So that being in the band prepared me that way, but it also really prepared me because being the artist, you have to stand behind a song deeply because you're going to go, and if you're lucky and that song is a hit, which I never had, but you still have to answer the same 7 questions in every interview. And if you have a hit, it has to be about that song. You have to, how am I going to visually present this to my fans? You have to, what's my video going to be? What, like, as the artist, there's so many different facets of creativity that go into one song that when I started writing songs for other people, my priority is just to make sure the song is great. But I have an understanding that a lot of professional songwriters who never were artists, never performed, don't realize, like, hey, if the artist wants to change this one line because they don't know how to stand behind it, I don't want to swap it out for a worse line, but let's change it for a line that's just as good that they can stand behind. And that's why I think a lot of artists trust me and they feel like they can tell me their stories because they know I'm listening and they know that I'm going to fight for a great song, but I'm going to fight for them to love it too. Not just me, not just their manager, not just their A&R. Like, I want them to love it too.
I imagine that pressure is even more intense when this is a new artist, where your songs are helping them to define their aesthetic and how people are going to think about them.
Yeah. It's or even just there is that feeling with a new artist, but I think also even artists who are already famous, fame is a very unnatural, awful thing that no one actually likes once they get it. They love making music that the whole world hears. They love playing to bigger audiences, but like, the show is just like an hour and a half of your life. There's still 22 and a half hours that being famous fucking sucks. So the whole world's watching you. How does this new song, what are they going to think? Are they going to think I'm talking about this X when really I'm talking about that X? Are they going to think that I'm not over something? It's a lot to think about. And I want to make sure that the song is great, but that they also feel comfortable and confident in how the world is going to perceive it.
When you're writing with an artist or even a new collaborator for the first time, how do you feel out their songwriting vibe and try to gel with them?
It's a conversation. Just like talk about nothing. I'll share a little bit from my personal life so they feel like it's not just this interview. Just try my hardest to hang out with them like two human beings. And then normally, I would say 9 times out of 10, I can spot the song in that conversation, which then they feel way more connected to the song because it's not like, oh, let's go through my phone and see what titles I have stored, which sometimes I do. I love a good title and I do write them down if something comes across my brain or someone says something, but 9 times out of 10, I'm just going to listen to them and talk to them, even if they're not the artist, if they're a co-writer. And I find there is no age limit on success, and there's no age limit on dreams coming true, or for me, new dreams coming true, because luckily, like, most of my dreams did come true, but you invent new ones to conquer, there's no age limit on that. But I do think that young people, young writers, young artists, their emotions are so much more raw and so much more urgent, because hopefully the older you get, the more at peace you get. And peace normally doesn't make for great songs. So I want to like, I'm pretty peaceful. I'm pretty chill over here. So talking to a younger co-writer, whether they're the artist or they're just a writer, is normally where we're going to find the song. Every now and then I'm like, I really want to write a song about this. And I'll wait for the right co-writer to bring that to. But 9 times out of 10, I just wait. I just have the conversation with the younger person and find the song inside of that.
10 years into your songwriting career, what are some of the practices that you find to be most essential to your day-to-day writing routine?
Write a lot. I'll just speak really freely because I feel like a lot of people who watch this are like industry folks, or aspiring songwriters, or
Yes.
already are songwriters but waiting for your break or whatever. So I'll just speak super freely because hopefully it'll help the people watching. I sold my first catalog. I'm building another, and it's going fabulously. But I sold my first catalog in 2020, and then COVID hit, and my parents live with me, so I took that first year of COVID off because they didn't want the thought of me being the reason that they got COVID. Like, I couldn't handle that. They're older. I just couldn't. I'm the youngest of 4. So I'm 44. Well, in COVID, when that started, I was 40. But because I'm the youngest of 4, my parents are a lot older than people would assume. So I was really afraid of doing that, even though like they would go to the casino, but that's their free will. If they want to get COVID, that's their business. I'm not doing it. And then so when I came back after COVID and had sold my catalog, lots of people in my life were just like, just chill. Like, you don't need to do double sessions ever again. You don't need to work on Saturday. You don't you just work when you want. And I was like, okay, let me try to that's literally what almost everyone was telling me. And so I was like, I guess if a lot of people that I love and respect are telling me that, I should try it. And my songs just weren't that good for like a year. They just weren't. And I realized for me, I am very much like a creature of habit. And I feel better like in my heart. And I am a much more talented writer, specifically lyricist, because that's my favorite part of songs, the more that I'm doing it. So kind of to answer your question in a really roundabout way, apologies, for me, it's just about consistency. It's just about, I love my schedule. I don't even know what's on my schedule most times. Like, it's just the night before I'll look or I'll ask someone, what am I doing tomorrow? But the people that I'm lucky enough to work with, they know that no, I probably want at least 3 double sessions a week, meaning, I want to write minimum 8 songs a week. And that's just how I'm better. So that's the only answer I have for you. For me personally, it's just to write a lot. But I also think for me, it's the only thing I can control. I can't control people's opinions. I can't control someone's release schedule. I can't control, that writer has a better relationship with that artist. I can't control any of that. What I can control is that I'm going to work harder than anyone. I can't control people's subconscious homophobia about overthinking, well, can Justin hang with that crew? Is it going to be... I can't control any of that. What I can control is that I will write more songs than anyone I've ever met. Doesn't mean they're all good, but it means I can write more, which for me makes it better.
So I was looking at this Spotify playlist, the whole "This is Justin Tranter."
It's criminal.
It's over 500 songs.
It's over 500,
and that's just the ones that got cut.
Yeah, that's the ones that were released.
Right.
Yeah,
that's true. That were released over the past decade.
Cut. Yeah.
And I don't even know if that included the Semi-Precious Weapons stuff.
I mean, it probably does, but Semi-Precious Weapons is 20 songs that were released, maybe.
Yeah. So that's you're right. That is a criminal level of activity.
Yeah, it's and most people kept trying to tell me that's unhealthy. That's not, and I was like, it was the first time in my whole life that I was ever my version of unhappy. I'm very, very lucky. My mental health has always been pretty solid. The only time I could ever I think this is what being slightly unhappy is when I just wasn't working a lot. I'm way happier working a lot.
So you have this intensely busy work regimen. The world is in chaos quite often the last few years.
Yes.
You're very involved in advocacy. How do you practice self-care to keep yourself centered and connected that whole time?
Yeah, I am a lot more. I'm saying no to certain fundraising and advocacy things more than I used to, because I realized I'm very happy to speak out, and I have a platform to use for the issues that people, I'm not like famous, but certain issues people do listen to me on, whether it's songwriter advocacy or whether it's LGBTQ issues, specifically LGBTQ people in the media and entertainment. So I love to use my platform in those ways, but also to speak crudely, like, if I go and work a lot more and say, no, I'm not going to be on the board of this organization or that organization. If I go and work a lot more, I can give money to people who are full-time activists, who are people who've dedicated their lives, their careers to activism. And that was a big realization for me the last couple years of, oh wait, I can actually serve the world better, do what I'm really good at. And yes, raise my voice when I feel like it's necessary, but if it's like, we're not asking activists to come and write pop songs, because that's not their job. So like, I should do my job, and I can give those activists money to do their job.
But sometimes when you find someone who's great at both, like some of the great protest songs and the folk songs of the
Yeah.
60s, they become the most important songs of all
Yeah.
time.
And for me, in terms of protest songs, which I do love to write, but I'm not the artist, right? So I can write them, but it's not trying to get someone. I've had a couple times where artists wanted to go on that journey, and it was really exciting and really fun, but that can't be a goal, because I can't control what comes out. So knowing, okay, no, you can help the causes you care about by going and doing your job and then writing a check. Also, like, people are professional activists, and they like have thought a lot about it, and they went to school for it. Like, I'm just like shooting off Insta stories. You know what I mean? Like, there's people who like know what the fuck they're doing.
I mean, I would also argue that a lot of your best known songs are all about vulnerability and embracing oneself.
Yeah.
Which is, that's advocacy to me.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll take that. I'll receive that. That's fair. Yeah. I mean, I said, like, Good Luck Babe, I think, does change the world. I will, like, it's in what I love. I think it's so beautiful is that it's not a protest song. It's just Chappell living in her truth, but, you know, being the first pop star, superstar to ever start their career out of the closet before fame, without even trying to be political, without even trying to be an artist of protest. She is, which is why it's such an honor for me to work with her and have co-written the song that kicked the door open for her, the mainstream door. She kicked many doors open that and you know what I'm saying? She's the fucking best. But yeah, there are moments of protest just because someone's living in their truth.
What do you think are the most important issues that music creators in specific are facing today?
I'll just focus on songwriters because that's what I know the best, and I do think that we are facing more issues than anyone. Because I know a lot of people are like, oh, but now artists have to be content creators too. You always had to be. I hate to break it to you. In my band, to get a song to go top 20 on alternative radio, I had to travel the whole country and sing in weird radio station conference rooms while old men ate weird sandwiches and like sing my single acoustic that cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars to travel the country doing. That's creating content. That's like artists have always had to be their own best promoters. They have always had to create content. So that issue, I think, is crazy. Because I'm like, if I could have just sat in my fucking bedroom and made 20 TikToks a day instead of like having weird people stare at me while I sing my single acoustic, like I would have fucked up that TikTok. I mean, I would have been all day, every day. You couldn't have stopped me. We had to do it on MySpace. You know, this is all like, my band got to sell tickets because of MySpace, and I thought that that was a gift. So that issue I think is a lie, and I think that people just don't want to work. What's the really tone deaf Kim Kardashian quote? Nobody wants to work these days. I realized I could, the risk of sounding like that, but I was not born into a rich, famous family, so I'm allowed to complain about people working hard. Anyway, I think songwriters are facing a great issue that I feel very comfortable speaking out about, because I now am not fighting for myself, because luckily my career took off the last couple years where radio was king, and I got my radio hits, which means, because radio still pays songwriters well, for anyone's watching, I'm sure there's things on the ASCAP website that will explain this way better than I will, or an ASCAP professional who will explain this better. But what I can say is that radio still pays songwriters very well. So when I fight for songwriters, I'm good. Like I'm only working because it makes me happy. I am lucky enough that if I wanted financially to chill, I can. The next generation of songwriters might not have a future. And I know that's dramatic, but that's real. Please don't stop writing songs. Please keep creating. Please make music. Don't give up. But people like me who are like sitting in a tower in Hancock Park, we need to fight for you guys. Like ASCAP is fighting for you guys. Like it's going to be fucked. Streaming does not pay us nearly enough. Radio is now the last stop for a song, not the first stop. So even when I would have songs that would only go to 25 on radio, because the label was basically just trying to see if people liked it, that was still money, you know? So even the ones that weren't hits, we were still getting paid something. Now, we should have been getting paid from streaming the whole time. That's a different conversation. But now that radio is the last stop for a song, not the first stop, that means that way less songs are going to radio. That means that the next generation of writers are not getting the shot that they deserve at a financial future. And again, it's not about people complaining about not being rich. It's about there are huge tech companies making the money that songwriters deserve. So someone's making the money still. Because I'll talk about this online and I'll see comments, well, if it wasn't a good enough song, then it didn't make you money. Stop complaining. I'm like, no, that's not. Someone is making money. It's just not the people who actually wrote it.
Well, here. I mean, you talked about the job that ASCAP is doing, trying to fight for equity and fair compensation for songwriters. You're a fresh member of ASCAP.
Yes.
Can you talk about what inspired you to join? What is it about this organization that made you want to join?
The once I learned the history of ASCAP and that it still lives and breathes that. It started as songwriter advocacy. It started as songwriter activism, and it still is. And I'm going to speak super broad here so that no one's feathers are ruffled, but there's a transparency in ASCAP that certain other companies no longer have. So ASCAP, like, you know how much money ASCAP is going to receive from your songs as payment for taking, like, getting by ASCAP gets us paid, but there's people who have to do that job, so those people need to get paid too. But like, so there's a transparency to what ASCAP will be making to provide the services they provide that other companies no longer provide that transparency. And I think that that's creepy because even record labels who are famously not very nice to songwriters and artists and blah, blah, they still tell you how much they're going to take. There's still, And record labels should not be like a gold star for like looking after songwriters. But they, at least you know, when you're an artist or whatever, you know, when you sign that record deal, you know what they're going to take, whether it's a ethical deal or not. You're making the choice to step into something that's ethical or not. And ASCAP is very ethical. Everything's very transparent. And so as someone who loves to fight for songwriters, I just thought it made a lot more sense for me to be aligned with the company that started is fighting for songwriters, is still fighting for songwriters, and is still transparent.
Justin Tranter, thank you so much for being here with us. Thanks for being part of the ASCAP family, and congrats again on the Grammy nod.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, honored to be a new part of this family, and it feels very good. It feels like everything was aligned. I came to you guys just at the right time.
So at this point, I would love to hear some of the stories of, let's say, 10 of your most iconic songs from the past decade. You ready to go?
Let's go.
Great. Tell the lovely people listening all about one of your first big smashes, Centuries by Fall Out Boy.
Centuries by Fall Out Boy. It was not one of the first smashes. It was the first smash. It was the song that changed my entire life. I had just started writing songs with and for other artists. I was watching a documentary on YouTube called Pay It No Mind, which was a documentary about Marsha P. Johnson, who is an unbelievably inspiring LGBTQ activist from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and was kind of heartbroken that Marsha now is celebrated as the hero and the trailblazer that she is, but in her time was very much left behind by a more cleaned up corporate LGBTQ movement. And just the lyric came to my mind of "You'll remember me for centuries." And then wrote it in a session with Raja Kumari and J.R. Rodham. And we were convinced it was going to be like a hook for a rapper. So we didn't write verses. We didn't write a bridge. We just wrote a hook and a post hook, and there was a track, and left the verses open, imagining it would be for rappers. And a couple weeks later, someone said, Fall Out Boy loves this chorus. And I was like, oh, this makes perfect sense, because rock stars have always embodied that sort of underdog point of view. And that song changed my life forever. Bad at Love by Halsey, one of my favorites. I suggested the title because we had to go quick, so I couldn't do my normal thing of having a long conversation with the artist. I just suggested a title I had in my phone, which was Bad at Love. She loved it. We went in deep together on the pre-chorus and the chorus, and then when it came time to write the verses, she I don't know if she asked for space. It was just clear she wanted to tell very specific stories about her own life, because we weren't able to have that conversation because we were moving so quick. So she kind of turned to the corner on her phone and wrote the verses and then sang them for me and Ricky Reed, and we were blown away. We obviously wrote the chorus and the pre together, so we all felt very good about that. But then these very specific stories from her life adding color in the verses. And then the second verse being about romantic relationships with women, of course, made me very proud to think that song went number 2 at pop radio, which I'm almost positive is the first song to go top 5 at pop radio using same-sex pronouns in a romantic setting. So that makes me very, very proud, because even though we all worship Katy Perry, I Kissed a Girl, that is not romance, that's just fun. So yes, Bad at Love, very proud of it. Believer from Imagine Drag Queens. Me, Matt, and Robin again. We went to Vegas to work with Dan Reynolds from Imagine Dragons. We went to Vegas to write songs to pitch to other people, because Dan had an interest in writing songs for other people while he was figuring out what his next album was going to sound like. So we did not go there with the intention to write for Imagine Dragons. And it was in the heat, literal and metaphorical heat, of the Thou Shalt Not Be Named and Hillary Clinton election cycle. And we were all very stressed and very terrified. And that song was birthed from that. After we wrote the song, we're like, this is an Imagine Dragons song. But like, we didn't come here to do that. We can't really, it'd be weird to tell him this is like, girl, this is your song, just sing it. That'd be weird to do. Then like 2 nights later, we went to dinner at his house, and his then wife, Asia, who was in a band that I used to tour with, so she was a friend of mine before I even knew him. We played her the song, and she was like, this is an Imagine Dragons smash. Like, this is for you, right, Dan? And he was like, yeah, I think it is. And I was like, yes. Because who are you going to pitch that song to? It's also like the hardest song to sing in the world. Cake by the Ocean is maybe top 3 favorite songs of my whole career, because I think it is so joyful and absurd, but it knows that it's absurd. So it doesn't feel dumb because it's intentionally ridiculous. I was working with Joe Jonas and Matt Man and Robin for a couple days, and there was another co-writer in the room, and the other co-writer after like 3 days was like, this just doesn't feel like we're getting it. It doesn't feel like I'm not coming tomorrow. And Matt Man and Robin were like, oh, should we all cancel? I was like, no, we're not canceling. Like, I'm broke. You might not be broke, but I'm broke. This guy, like, Centuries had come out, but I hadn't gotten the money from Centuries, so I was still real broke. I was like, this guy was headlining arenas like 2 years ago, and the Jonas Brothers was like, we're going tomorrow. Let's just go and have fun. And so we went and we wrote a ridiculous song called Cake by the Ocean, and I love every second of it. Imagine Drag Queen's Enemy. That song clearly was written for them because Believer had already like been a massive hit for them. We're at Conway Studios, beautiful recording studio here in LA with all this gorgeous outdoor space. And Matt, Man, and Robin always get to sessions early to like set up their gear, make sure the computer's working, make sure the guitar's tuned, whatever. But Dan got there early that day too. So when I walked in, they already had a track going, the track that we've all heard, like the instrumental, and then also he had a version of the melody for the chorus. And a lot of times when people write songs and when the melody comes first, not the lyric, you just kind of put nonsense lyrics on it. So when I walked in, he was like singing like da 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 dee, everybody wants to be a celebrity, da 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 dee. And I was like, no, yeah, we can't call the song Celebrity. Like, I think that famous people have every right to want to set boundaries with fame and set boundaries with paparazzi. Oh, everyone wants to be my enemy. They'll play that at sports games. Is that what you call it? Sports games? Sports things? Yep.
Sporting events.
Sporting events. Thank you. That's definitely a much more appropriate thing to say. That's enemy. Julia Michaels, one of the most talented people in the world that I'm so lucky to work with. We just worked together recently and the first time in a while on some stuff that's coming out next year. Mark your calendars for a date. I don't know, but get excited. Julia and I were together the day that Justin Bieber's Sorry went #1. We were in a session, and Julia's then boyfriend was in a session across the hall of the same studio. And he was very jealous of our #1 and couldn't look her in the eye. And rightfully so, she was pretty pissed, but loved him deeply. So the idea was birthed of, I got issues, you got them too, so give them all to me and I'll give mine to you. And so that's how the song was born. And the first time I was nominated for Song of the Year, which was such a beautiful moment to be nominated with her first single as an artist. Pretty crazy. There was like 7 full circles in that experience, even though we'd only known each other for like 3 years, 2 years maybe. Lose You to Love Me by one of my favorite people in the world, Selena Gomez. Me and Julia Michaels had done a lot with Selena. Good For You, Hands to Myself, one of my other favorites, Bad Liar. None of us had been in the same room for maybe like a year all together. Like, because Julia was touring with her artist career. So I would do stuff with Selena here, and then Julia would do stuff with Selena there. But the posse hadn't been together for minimum a year. It might have been longer. And another session where there was limited time, Julia had to get on a plane to like go do like the Tonight Show in New York or something, literally. So another one we started at 10 a.m., knew that we had to be done by 2. And so Julia started a group text with Selena at like 7 a.m. in the morning, like, hey, what do you think you want to talk about? Let's like get ideas flowing now. And Selena told us what she wanted to talk about, which is in the song. I don't need to spill any extra tea. It's all in the song. And it was a beautiful moment where it just all sort of flowed and really emotional. The 3 of us had made a lot of music together, but nothing that vulnerable, nothing that raw. And so for the 3 of us to share that, and then for it to be Selena's first Hot 100 #1, pretty beautiful. Pretty Girls by Renee Rapp. If you can't tell, if you're watching this in a series, I love when people talk about gay shit in songs. Pretty Girls, Renee Rapp. We were in New Jersey. She was on set filming the Mean Girls movie musical. And so she would FaceTime us in the morning and be like, I want to write a song about this. I want to write a song about that. So we would get like a track vibe started and maybe a little bit of a chorus started. And then when Renee would get there at night after she was done filming, then we would actually write the verses. She's a great writer, so she would have ideas to tweak the chorus, different ways to take the track. But yeah, she just wanted to write a song about this very common experience that queer people have, where your straight friends get drunk and they're like, if I was gonna do it, it would be with you, which I think straight people, they think that it's a compliment. And maybe like in like the dark side of your ego, it is a compliment. 'Cause she's like, oh, they think I'm hot, but it's not a compliment. If you listen to that song, we don't actually like it, but I think like the dark sides of our personality, we all like attention. So that song is like a very common queer experience that we've all had. But I think most people just listen to it and they're like, ooh, yeah, Pretty Girls. I like those too. Sorry by Justin Bieber is a song that I wrote with one of my favorite co-writers ever, Julia Michaels, who just put out a really great single as an artist called Heaven 2. And we went in the night before and it was just tracks that people on Bieber's team were like, oh, I think he'd like this track, write to these tracks. And the next day we had a day session with Haley Steinfeld, who's one of the sweetest people of all time. And Julia, on our way to the second session, she's like, I mean, it's like Bieber's not even there. You know, Pooh Bear's like killing his sound right now. Are we just wasting our time? And I was like, I'm broke. We're going. And we went and we wrote Sorry in a max 40 minutes. And we just sort of imagined what we wanted all of our exes to say to us. And we just put it in a song and left. And the track that we wrote to is very stripped down to what we hear now. And we knew that the big sonic explosion would be like an instrumental drop because that was really happening back in 2015. So we knew we liked the song, but because there wasn't that big instrumental explosion, we couldn't really tell how it felt. So normally I can tell if something feels like a hit. That one, because it was so not done yet, me and Julia were both very surprised when it took over the world. Good Luck Babe by Chappell Roan. I listened to Pink Pony Club and I was like, this woman is so talented, I could jump off a bridge. So I was like, yeah, I don't care that she's not signed. Let's go. So the first day we met, we did My Kink is Karma. And then a couple months later, went back in again. And Chappell was just talking about a situation in her life of her having very strong feelings for someone that she knows has those feelings back. But this person is not ready to accept their queerness yet. And I was really excited to write that song because in my teens and 20s, I experienced that way, way too many times. But what I love about all great storytelling is that, as we can see by the song being such a hit, straight people relate to that too, because how many conversations have you had with friends, and your girlfriend is just like, oh my God, he's just like, is just not ready to settle down. He's not ready to chill, whatever the reason. We all have experienced that, where someone is not ready to actually act on the feelings they have. So I'm very proud of that song because it's very specifically queer, but it is proof that great storytelling is universal.
It's so funny, like listening to you tell the stories of these and the dynamics that preceded them. It's like there are 4 or 5 instances you've already talked about of like this unique social situation that may never have been captured in a song.
Yeah.
And it's like you have to be so psychologically acute as a songwriter to figure out, how can I describe that in lyrics? How can I capture it melodically?
Thank you. Yeah, I think there is an astuteness, but also it's tough. Like when it's your natural gift, practice, studying, like you can get better at it. But once your natural gift, you're just like, it's so, I love hearing things like that. Like, thank you for the compliment. But for me, it's like, I guess we're astute, but we're kind of just vibing. It's just like, it's so hard to explain how it happens. But I can see it in other people, right? It's hard to see it in my own songs, but like, I think Taylor Swift's one of the best songwriters of all time, and anyone who disagrees is just a weird hater and probably misogynist. But I don't understand Taylor's journey at all. I don't know what it's like to be raised wealthy, straight. I mean, she looks like a fucking supermodel. That's not my experience, but I listen to her songs and I'm like, yes, I knew that guy, or whatever it is. Like, it's just, she's such a great storytelling is for everyone. And I like to just always point it out that queer stories are universal, because I think a lot of executives don't accept that yet. And it's like, well, but if I can relate to straight stories, then why can't, gay men famously have been the financial backbone to every female pop star. If the songs are good, we're going on the journey. Anyway, so I hear you, because when I think about other people's songs, I can see how astute SZA is in like the specificity of those lyrics. I can see how Taylor Swift is. I can see how Linda Perry is. Like I can, but for myself, I'm like, we were just vibing. It's hard. It's hard to see your own art, I guess.
Well, thanks for vibing with us for so long.
You're welcome.